I was in my office that afternoon, reviewing the quarterly reports like any other Tuesday. One moment I was highlighting revenue projections, and the next, an overwhelming wave of dizziness hit me. The fluorescent lights suddenly felt too bright. The room began to spin, and then everything went dark. I woke up in the hospital 3 days later, surrounded by beeping machines and worried faces. My name is Elena Vargas. At 26 years old, I had never had any serious health issues. Yet there I was, hooked up to monitors, with my parents standing anxiously beside my bed. What happened? I asked, my voice hoarse and throat dry from disuse. My mother took my hand, her fingers trembling. You fainted at work, sweetheart. The doctors are running tests to find out why. But there was something in her eyes, a fear that didn't make sense for a simple fainting spell. My father stood by the window, unusually quiet, his shoulders tense. Where is Alejandro? I asked, noticing my twin brother was missing. We had always been incredibly close. He would normally be the first one here. The room fell silent. My mother squeezed my hand tighter while my father turned around, his face pale. There's something we need to tell you, my mother began, her voice shaking. Alejandro was in a car accident. He's in intensive care. My heart monitor started beeping faster. What? When? Tuesday afternoon, my father said quietly. Around 2:30, the same time you collapsed. Before I could process it, Dr. Marzal entered. Her white coat was impeccable, her expression carefully controlled. I'm glad you're awake, Elena. You've given us quite a puzzle. She checked my vital signs while explaining that my collapse had happened at exactly the same moment as Alejandro's accident. Your brother suffered a severe head trauma, she said, reviewing her notes. And at the exact moment of impact, you lost consciousness, even though you were miles away. That's impossible, I whispered. Just a coincidence, my mother interrupted, a little too quickly. It happens sometimes. Dr. Marzal gave her a strange look. Mrs. Castillo, given the circumstances, we want to run additional tests, including a DNA analysis. My father stepped forward immediately. Is that really necessary? Elena just fainted, probably stress or low blood sugar. With all due respect, Mr. Castillo, the doctor replied. Simultaneous responses to trauma in twins are rare but documented. We need to understand the genetic factors. I watched my parents exchange a worried glance. Something was wrong. How is Alejandro? I asked, trying to sit up. Can I see him? He's stable, the doctor answered, but still unconscious. The next 24 hours are critical. After she left, my parents made an excuse about getting coffee and left me alone with my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were hiding something. Their reaction to the DNA test. Their insistence on calling it a coincidence. I grabbed my phone and texted my best friend, Sophia, who worked at the hospital. I need a favor. Can you check which room Alejandro is in? She replied quickly. Intensive care, room 412, but visiting hours are over. I waited until night fell and the rounds became less frequent. Ignoring my aching muscles, I unplugged the monitors and slipped out of bed. The hallways were dark and quiet as I made my way toward the ICU. Leaning against the wall for support. Through the window of room 412, I saw my brother Alejandro completely still, his head bandaged, surrounded by machines. My chest tightened. We had always joked about having a twin connection, but this was different. This was terrifying. You shouldn't be here, a voice said behind me. It was Dr. Marzal, not at all surprised to see me outside my room. He's my twin, I said. I had to see him. She nodded, then hesitated. Elena, the preliminary results from your blood work are back. There are inconsistencies we need to discuss. What kind of inconsistencies? The kind that make me question everything your parents have told us about your relationship with Alejandro. My heart began beating faster. What do you mean? Your genetic markers. She paused, choosing her words carefully. They don't match those of twins. In fact, they don't match those of siblings at all. The hallway started spinning again, but this time it wasn't from weakness. 26 years of memories flashed through my mind. Shared birthdays, matching clothes, people always saying how alike we looked. That's not possible, I murmured. We're twins. We have the same birthday, the same face, the same parents. Do you? The doctor asked gently. Elena, I think it's time you had a serious talk with your mother and father. I looked at Alejandro through the glass, at the brother who might not be my brother, and felt my entire world beginning to crumble. The next morning, my parents arrived early with coffee and forced smiles. They found me sitting up in bed. The doctor's words were still echoing in my head. The blood test results lay in my lap. Pages of medical jargon leading to one impossible conclusion. Are you going to tell me the truth? I asked, surprisingly calm, about Alejandro and me. My mother dropped the coffee. The dark liquid spread across the floor, but she didn't even notice. My father's face turned gray. Elena, sweetheart, what are you talking about? He tried to fake confusion, but failed. I held up the results. Dr. Marzal analyzed my blood. Do you want to explain why your so-called twins share no genetic markers at all? The silence that followed was deafening. My father sank into the visitor's chair, suddenly looking 20 years older. My mother covered her mouth with both hands, eyes full of tears. We wanted to tell you, she whispered over and over. But what? I demanded. You thought it was better to lie to us our whole lives? Make us believe we were twins when we're not even siblings? Don't you understand? My father intervened. It was complicated. Uncomplicate it, I said, trembling as I clutched the papers. Tell me everything, now. My mother sat on the edge of the bed, twisting her hands. 26 years ago, we had just lost our baby. Our daughter was born without life. We were devastated. Your father and I couldn't bear the pain. And what does that have to do with Alejandro and me? My father spoke in a low voice. A nurse at the hospital knew of 2 babies who had been abandoned the same day. Different hospitals, different situations, but both needed homes. The pieces began falling into place, each one more terrifying than the last. We were adopted, I said slowly, separately. And then you pretended we were twins. They nodded, ashamed. It seemed perfect. My mother whispered, you were born only hours apart. You even looked similar. We thought we were giving you a family. A connection. A lie, I corrected harshly. You gave us a lie. Elena, please, my father begged. We loved you both so much. We just wanted you to have a special bond. To always have each other. Did anyone else know? The doctors, our school, they shook their heads. We moved to another city before adopting you. My mother said, we created new birth certificates. No one knew. I thought about all the times Alejandro and I had marveled at our twin connection. How we could sometimes feel what the other was thinking. How we finished each other's sentences. It had all been an illusion. A self-fulfilling prophecy based on what they made us believe. And now, I said, how do you explain the accident? Why did I faint right when he got hurt? My mother tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. We don't know, she admitted. Maybe it was just. Don't you dare say coincidence. I snapped. Enough with the convenient explanations. At that moment, a nurse appeared in the doorway. Elena, Alejandro is awake. He's asking for you. My parents stood up immediately, but I raised my hand. I don't need you there. You've done enough damage. As I walked toward Alejandro's room, I tried to prepare myself. How do you tell someone their entire relationship was built on a lie? That the connection we thought was biological was actually an elaborate fabrication. Alejandro looked pale against the white sheets, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. Elena, they told me you were here too. What happened? I sat beside his bed, studying his face. How had I never questioned how much we looked alike? Yes, we both had dark hair and blue eyes, but up close the differences were obvious. Alejandro, I began, my voice breaking, there's something I need to tell you about us. But before I could continue, he took my hand. I felt you, he said urgently, during the accident, right before everything went black. I felt you were there with me. How is that possible? I looked at our intertwined hands. We weren't twins, we weren't even siblings, but something had connected us that day. Something that defied any medical explanation. I don't know, I answered honestly, but there's more we need to talk about. About our parents, about our birth. His heart monitor began beeping faster as he saw my expression. Elena, what's wrong? What aren't you telling me? I took a deep breath, squeezed his hand, and prepared to destroy everything we thought we knew. Alejandro listened in absolute silence as I explained everything. The blood tests, our parents' confession, the lie that had shaped our entire lives. His face moved through disbelief, anger, confusion, and finally a deep sadness that mirrored my own. So we're not even related. He started, but couldn't finish. I said softly, we were adopted from different families, from different hospitals. They invented the twin story to give us a connection. Alejandro let out a bitter laugh. A connection. They manipulated our whole lives. Made us believe something that wasn't real. Maybe not everything was false. I interrupted. Alejandro, I fainted at the exact moment you had the accident. That wasn't made up. That wasn't something they could control. He fell silent, thinking. The bruises on his face stood out against his pale skin. A reminder of how close I had come to losing him. Sister or not, he said suddenly, have you thought about finding them? Who? Our biological parents. The question hit me hard amid all the chaos. I hadn't even considered it. I don't know. You? I think we have to. He said firmly. We need to know the whole truth. Dr. Marzal entered at that moment with more results in her hand. She looked between us, noticing the heavy atmosphere. I assume you already know everything, she said gently. We nodded. Then perhaps you'll be interested in this. She raised the papers. We ran more detailed genetic tests. Even though you're not biologically related, there's something unusual in your results. My heart began to race. What does that mean? You both have a very rare genetic marker associated with heightened empathetic sensitivity. It's extremely uncommon, less than 1% of the population. That both of you have it. What are the odds? Astronomical, Daniel answered. That could explain your synchronized response to the accident. Some studies suggest people with this marker can form deep psychological bonds regardless of biological relation. I took Alejandro's hand again. I felt that familiar warmth. That connection we had always shared. Perhaps our parents' lie had given us a starting point, but what we built afterward was real. We would like to do more studies. The doctor continued. If you give permission, this could help us understand more about emotional bonds. No more tests, Alejandro and I said at the same time. Then we looked at each other and laughed. No more studies, I explained. We've been under a microscope our whole lives without knowing it. Whatever we have is ours. The doctor nodded understandingly and left us alone. The silence that followed was comfortable, familiar. What are we going to do about them? Alejandro asked finally. Mom and Dad. The words felt different now, but they were still true. They're still our parents, I said slowly. They raised us. They loved us. They made us who we are, even if they were wrong about how they did it. But can we trust them again? Before he could answer, our parents appeared in the doorway. For the first time, I saw them as they truly were, imperfect human beings. Desperate, who had made a huge mistake out of love and grief. We understand if you don't want to see us anymore, my mother said, crying, but please know that everything we did, even though it was wrong, was out of love. Alejandro and I exchanged a look. 26 years of silent communication. It hadn't been a lie after all. We need time, I said, and space, and complete honesty from now on, including our adoption records. They nodded quickly, relief flooding their faces. And Alejandro added, we want to know about her. About your daughter, our sister, the one who didn't survive. She's part of the story too. My mother covered her mouth, holding back a sob. My father held her tightly. Whatever you want to know, he promised. No more secrets. When they left, Alejandro squeezed my hand. You know what's the strangest part? Even after finding out we're not twins, I feel like our connection is even more special. Because it's real, it's ours, we chose it. I smiled, knowing he was right. Blood can make you relatives, but it takes something more to make you family. And Alejandro and I had that something. A bond that didn't need DNA to exist. Then let's get ready to discover where we really come from, I said. He smiled with that same mischievous expression from when we were kids. As long as we do it together, he promised. That part had never been a lie. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next story.